Hi there, I'm Sara Zarrella, a portrait and wedding photographer and your host for Wedding Secrets Unveiled. This is a podcast where we cut through the complexity of wedding planning, leaving you with everything you need to know direct from the industry experts. If you want to simplify your wedding planning, while having fun, of course, you came to the right place. Join me while I guide you through your planning, starting from your engagement to your big day where you say, I do. After photographing for the past 18 years, I am sharing with you tips and tricks to cut through the excess noise because I believe from the moment you said yes, your planning experience should be a magical time in your life. Here you'll find episodes that are fun, stress-free, and straight to the point, with a fresh, honest take about the reality of what you really need to know about planning your perfect day. Let's dive in. So welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled, podcast friends. We are in our mini-series number 2, and I have Dan here.
Hello.
And we're going to talk today for a quick mini-series about shooters, one shooter versus two shooters, which photographers, and timelines, and what you should expect for a generality for timeline, which really dictates on whether you have one shooter versus two shooter. So today's mini episode is coming at you hot about timelines and one shooter versus two shooter.
Mm-hmm. Very important.
Yes. So Dan, a lot of times I know we were trying to figure out what we wanted to talk about today because there's so many things we could talk about. A lot of times, though, the number one question that we get when people are talking about to us and whether they want us to photograph their wedding or not is they're always asking about if they should have one shooter versus two shooter. So I want to kind of explain a little bit about the one shooter versus two shooters, and then I want to kind of get into timelines and how a timeline would look with one shooter and a timeline would work with two shooter. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about two shooters first, because a lot of times we work together on the two shooters.
Yeah, and it sounds silly, but when you think about it, it's really a function of one person can only be in one place at one time. And yeah, that sounds silly, but I think people don't really think about that, where two shooters are two people, obviously, and can get two different angles at the same time, obviously, when me and Sarah shoot together, we're not standing in the same location, or even close to each other. We're way getting different things. The faster, it's faster to get coverage on kind of anything, really. First thing that comes to mind with me is a first look. It's it goes quickly. It's like a happening that happens kind of quickly. And the more cameras you can have on that is the more expressions, the more anything. Coverage, yeah. Yeah.
First and foremost, I like you said, the one shooter can't be at the same location. So if you have two shooters, you're just going to get more coverage. It is what it is, right?
Yep.
So, but there's a but to that. Two shooters usually means a higher budget.
Yep.
So I think for the listeners, if you are on a tighter budget, the way to get quality photography, if you don't want to go to someone that's less of a quality, is just do one shooter. If you have less of a larger budget, two shooters are always going to be beneficial. Mm-hmm. The reason why I bring that up is at least with us and our packages, the one shooter package is lower in price than the two shooter package, but you're not sacrificing the quality. I look at us as quality photographers.
And it's the kind of thing where usually a speech is a couple minutes long. You can grab the speaker, get their expressions, get them talking, turn around and get some expressions if you were one person.
Right.
Sarah, how many times have we had speeches and it's the person, I don't know what to say, and, cheers. And it's okay.
Right.
I got them talking, but
we didn't get the reactions.
Yeah, I couldn't get anything.
And I think what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about the pros and the cons of the one versus two shooters, and you brought up a really good point with the first looks and the speakers. But before we even get into that, let's just break it back down to what the pros are for two shooters. Is, like you just said, overall, two shooters can be at multiple locations at the same time. Mm-hmm. So one person can be with the guys, one person can be with the girls. During a ceremony, one person can be center aisle, one person can be working the aisles, and you're wondering what that person's doing. So let's do this. Let's take the entire day and let's talk about what you would do and versus what I would do on a 2-shooter day, and then we'll talk about what we do on a 1-shooter day.
Sure.
So let's start with prep.
So generally speaking, you're going to have the girls or the ladies getting ready, the guys getting ready, and if those are happening at the same time, you can't be in 2 places at once. So having 2 shooters can let you have that hour of prep being covered at the same time with using that same hour.
Right. So when Dan and I are on a job, he'll most of the time be with the guys and I'll be with the girls, and we'll be simultaneously doing prep photos. Then we'll lean into, let's pretend that they're having a first look. On a first look, you can get 2 perspectives happening at the same time with not a lot of movement. And what I mean by that is one person can get one angle and the other person can get another angle at the same time, and the first look happens so quickly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's the benefit of having 2 shooters for a first look. And then, the ceremony. There will be 1 shooter in the center of the aisle, and then there'll be 1 shooter working the sides. So kind of explain to people what the person working the sides do. So
not that ceremonies are always, they're pretty predictable, but there's unpredictable parts. Generally speaking, the down the aisle shot is kind of the money shot. It's like, where all the action happens. You get the greatest angle, usually the greatest picture, greatest wide shot. It's where you can zoom in and get the action happening, especially when people are looking at each other. Sometimes there's a lot of back of the heads. But sometimes the just looking at each other part is kind of quick in certain ceremonies, and you definitely want to be center aisle when that's happening. And if you're working the sides, as we like to call it, going on one side to try to get a lot of reactions from one side, walk all the way around everybody, not, running because, that'll just make everybody uncomfortable. Getting to the other side, and suddenly, there's some part where, they're looking at each other. Oh, I got to get back to the middle, So if you have somebody always kind of in the middle, they're always ready to grab that, that expression.
That money shot.
Yeah, right.
And then if you have someone working the sides, they can get like the side expressions, the groom's expressions, the bride's expressions, the mom's expression, the dad expression. Like you can get the side angles. That is, extra fluff, which are great.
Right.
And then, having 2 shooters during picture time, whether it's before the ceremony or after, you have 1 person working with the guys, 1 person working with the girls. You can have 1 person getting candid expressions while the other person's getting the main stuff. I mean, can you think of any other pointers?
Well, one thing that, before every wedding, me and Sarah always have a game plan. We go through, okay, this is our time. We're doing this, doing that. Sometimes, it's crunched so much that sometimes somebody's got to get in and get those details. Things people forget,
The details of the room.
Yeah, the details of the room, yeah.
Yes.
So, formal stuff, maybe 1 person can get that, but they're still setting up a little bit. You can get in. The key with details, too, is before people get in, the guests get in and put their coats everywhere.
Right.
And mess up everything and tip over the butter or whatever.
So that's a good point, is that if you have 2 shooters, 1 person can getting the family pictures and the bridal party pictures and the couple pictures, while the other person could be detailing the room.
Right.
Before the guests come in, which I didn't even think about that. You're right. Yeah. We do that all the time.
All the time, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing, and that's, again, being 1 person can't be at 2 locations at the same time. So if you are, a lot of times you have to do the detail stuff when you don't have a first look.
Yeah.
And you only have that cocktail hour time to do pictures, which is usually 1 hour.
Yep.
And we'll kind of get into timelines in a little bit. But you're right, Dan. And a lot of times, you'll be photographing the formals, or I'll be photographing the formals, and then the other person will go in and detail the room.
Yep. And the best time to do that is right after they pour the water in those glass. It's almost like that finishing touches, and it's unfortunate that you can't do it earlier, but it takes so long to dress a room and to get that wide shot or the detail shots that, a lot of people want, because
that's all their money.
Remembering everything you spent all this money on. You want that photographed, and it's the best time is right after the all the glasses are full. You take a wide shot and the glasses aren't full. It might look a little weird to some people, I guess.
And also, too, you have to wait for people to clear the room.
You
don't want people
every
in
time.
the room.
I don't know how many times I saw Sarah in the corner of the room trying to take her wide shot, and then a wait staff just goes whoop, and it's like,
But, and then you brought up a little bit about the reception. You already talked about it, speeches. You can have one person getting the couple and their reactions and the person that's speaking, and then the other person getting the guests speaking. Now, well, obviously we start talking about one shooters, we could talk about what a one shooter can do. But with two shooters, you can make sure that you have the reactions covered and then also to the main person covered. Yep. I mean, granted, we're just giving cliff notes and highlights. There's all other pros about having two shooters, but that's just kind of the general thing.
Yeah, same thing with the dancing. Some people tear up when, they're having their first dance, and you want to try to have time to capture that. How many times have, like I said before, we realize that it's a half a song. I always ask DJs, are we playing the full song? We get half song. How much time do I have? Because I can get what I need on, the couple dancing, and then I can look around a little bit, see who's welling up, and then get back and do all these things. If it's half a song, it's a little tighter. Not undoable, but
no. And the thing is, so those are like the quick tips of why two shooters are good. I mean, obviously, there's other things that are happening and other reasons to have two shooters, but let's kind of talk about one shooter. Obviously, if you have a little bit of a tighter budget, or honestly, if you have just a smaller wedding, you don't need two shooters. And so I want to take you through a day with one shooter and what that one shooter would do, and then I kind of want to talk about timelines, because then you'll realize why you do need to have two shooters or why one shooter is just fine. So on a one shooter day, let's talk about prep. So if you have one shooter, you need to think about either not having – okay, basically one shooter can't be at two places at one time. So if you're getting ready at two different locations, one person's not going to be able to get coverage. Hate to say it, it's normally the men, because it's always goes with the bride.
Yep.
But that's not to say or sometimes one shooter packages, they forego the prep altogether. But with that said, you really – have to understand that with one shooter packages, one person's definitely going to get covered and one person may not, unless you're getting married. Unless
you have two different, a lot of time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Unless you are getting ready on the same site, then that takes into consideration timeline, and then you can build in the timeline. Yeah. But with that said, usually with one shooter packages, you get prep of one person. Then on the first look, let's see if you have a first look. Which I highly always recommend having a first look with one shooter packages, always, because then you can get the details that we talked about. But that's
with two.
No, with one shooter packages, I always say do a first look.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Because then if you do a first look on the one shooter packages, then you could do all the pictures, and then during that cocktail hour time, that one person can go detail the room because pictures are already done.
Freeze up time.
Yes.
I get what you're saying.
So with the one shooter packages, you do the first look, which is totally doable with one person.
Yeah.
It's just,
I was going to say, when I do them, obviously, and I think probably you do the same. So a lot of times I pause. I say pause, and then I can switch, because usually it's like shooting over the bride's shoulder to get the groom a little bit, but then kind of pause, and then let me walk over and get the bride's reaction when they turn around or something like that. I guess that's reverse, but
right. And when you say pause, just so the listeners know, you're not pausing them when they're actually doing their first look.
No,
you're talking about
so it's usually like walk forward.
Exactly, right when they're walking. Obviously, for the first look, we will never stop at the pause. But what I'm saying is, you'll just basically tell them to take a couple steps, wait for a second, and then you move, and then you let the whole action happen.
Well, usually it's like, the groom's like 100 yards away, bride's here. Or the bride's like 100 yards away, groom's here, and they have that long amount of time walking towards each other. I can get somebody's reaction, then I can say pause, and then turn, get the other person's reaction, and then once kind of the tap on the shoulder and they see each other, then it's no pause. But then you gotta run around a little bit, but usually everything can get covered.
Yeah, and with the one shooter packages and having one shooter, you can get it covered. It's just, like you said, you have to have someone that knows what they're doing and knows the angles, and just to get the different coverage. And they just have to move around a little bit more.
Got to use that hustle.
Right. And then obviously for the ceremony with the one shooter packages or having one shooter, you can get the center aisle, you can get the sides. You're just not going to get as much. So you're going to always have a person go center aisle, and then they're going to work the sides, get the reactions, but then they're going to go back to center aisle.
They got to go to home base.
Right.
Yeah, the way we do it is, obviously when everybody's coming in, it's center aisle, turn around, center aisle a little bit, getting that kind of stuff. I immediately go side, one side, other side, get as much as I can. And then I got to go back to center aisle because that's where, like I said, where the action is and where, can't miss anything.
And it's important for you guys to understand that we're still getting it. It's just, again, it's very, very planned out, but it's not, but you're not always going to have someone on the sides and you're not always going to have someone in the center aisle, but you're going to get it.
Well, one of the things you don't want to miss is like the kiss. And the kiss is going to happen right away. So that's the time we can go and get those side angles. But we got to go back. We want to capture everything, but sometimes a kiss is in the middle of the certain services, interestingly enough. And you want to be center aisle for that.
And then also, too, for photos, if you're having it during cocktail hour, one shooter can't be at multiple times at the same time. So they can't be at cocktail hour. They have to be taking your pictures. If you did a first look, they can be at cocktail hour and then going in to photograph your decor. Again, it's all doable, but it's just figuring out what's the most important thing. And it's getting it. So that's where timelines become very important, which we'll touch upon in a little bit. And then coming your reception, which Dan already talked about. When you're having a speech that's a very long speech, awesome. With one shooter, you're getting the speech, you're getting the couple's reactions, you're getting the crowd's reactions. But if you have someone who has a really quick speech, you're really getting the key stuff, which is just the speech and maybe the couple's reaction. You don't have that time to get that extra fluff. Again, it's all about what's important and what's allowed in your budget. I'm not saying that one is I'm not trying to say, obviously having two shooters is always best, but I'm not saying that having one shooter is not good. It's sometimes, to be honest with you, there's certain weddings I just say you only need one shooter, especially the smaller ones.
And again, with the details of the one shooter, if there's no first look and everything is getting done during that cocktail hour, it's kind of a bummer. But if you want the details covered, part of that hour has to be part of the details, if not a little bit longer. And we always, we know every vendor, wedding venue that we pretty much go to, and we know certain venues, they bar against it of, having a cocktail hour area and then like the venue area. So we know we can get in there before people, like I said before, like put their coats down and stuff like that. Sometimes people want to put their coat down right away and it's harder to grab those details.
Right. And that's just when we have to kind of move the coats, but it's harder.
Oh, sure.
But you know what though, Dan, it's one of those things where it's just a matter what we do, and hopefully the listeners, what you have to do is ask your photographer is we have to tell you what time allows, and then we have to tell you what option A and option B is, and then you pick what's right for you.
Yeah.
So we'll tell you, obviously with a one shooter, first looks are always better, just so you guys know, because then nothing's happening at the same time. Yeah. You do pictures, then you get married, and then you have cocktail hour, and then you have your reception. However, if you don't do a first look with one shooter, there's something that's happening at the same time. You're having cocktail hour, details, and pictures. So something has to give. Has to give. So we won't let details give, and we won't let pictures give. So what we normally do is have cocktail hour give. Unless you say it's okay, but that's not.
Yeah.
So something. Again, you don't have to, but something has to give. Also, too, same thing with the getting ready. If you're getting ready at two different spots, you can't have the one shooter go from here to there. Something has to give. Now, sometimes what has to give is maybe your timeline. Maybe someone gets dressed a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
If you're not in the same spot, so that way the one shooter can go maybe see the guys first and then go see the girls. Yep. Everything is doable. It's just a matter of
you got to think it through.
And we'll help you with it.
Oh, you're forgetting one thing, Sarah.
What?
When is one shooter preferable? The end of the night with the dancing. Oh. Do you need two shooters at the end of the night?
So
grabbing all those drunk dancing pictures?
That is, before we go on a break and then we'll come back and we'll talk about timelines, you nailed something on the head that I didn't even think about. For all those listeners, at least I can't speak for what other photographers do, but I can speak for what Dan and I do. You are so right. It doesn't matter if you have two shooters or not. Dan and I always break down to one shooter packages. One shooter at the end of the night for no matter what package you get. And the reason being is there's a point when we want to photograph organically, unobtrusive. when all your formalities are done and it's just the party, it's so important to capture that party. But you do not need 2 shooters on that dance floor. It's overkill. So no matter if you have 1 shooter or 2 shooter packages, we always break down to 1 shooter. You're so right.
Yeah. And the other funny thing that I often tell people is I back off a lot of times when dancing first starts because sometimes it can make people feel self-conscious and stuff. Like, oh, I'm going to get up there. Oh, I'm going to be photographed when I'm dancing. You almost want to like wait till the dance floor gets kind of packed, and then you can go on get those photographs. Right. And imagine that with 2 shooters, 2 people, 2 fully loaded photographers are on the dance floor. Nobody's going to be the first one to want to dance because they know that they're going to get attacked by a photographer.
But you're right, Dan. We always break down to 1 shooter. One of us stays and one of us goes, and we alternate.
It's just too much.
It's just too much. Exactly. And you know what, too, is before we get into timelines, after we take the break, the other thing I was going to say is the reason why we brought this up is because when you all call us and ask us questions and you kind of go into the quote-unquote interview process with us to see if we're right for your wedding day, this topic always comes up. Always people are like, do I need 1 shooter versus 2 shooter? And hopefully this kind of gives you some ideas of if you do need 1 shooter versus 2. But a lot of times people say to me, oh, I have 150 people or I have 200 people. Do I need 1 shooter versus 2? That's not what dictates it. It's what your timeline, the day of, what's happening. It all comes back down to 1 shooter cannot be at 2 spots at the same time. So how is your day lined up? And that kind of brings us back. So it's not amount of people. Now, obviously, if you have a smaller wedding, yes, that lends itself to 1 shooter, always. But you can have 2 shooters at smaller weddings if there's a lot of stuff going around and happening at the same time. And you could have 1 shooter at huge weddings if the timeline is spread out. So, Dan, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about timelines.
Great.
I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, I encourage you to check out our website at sarazarrella.com. And don't forget, you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate if you left a fabulous review on Apple Podcast. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support. And now, let's get back to the episode. Well, welcome back, podcast friends. So right before the break, Dan and I were talking about the difference with 1 shooter packages versus 2 shooter packages and when you know you need 1 versus 2. But I want to talk, Dan, a little bit about timelines because I feel like that also dictates if you need 1 shooter versus 2.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even know what you need until you start, getting the numbers together on that timeline. And, I mean, I can remember one specific time. I don't know if you want to tell that story, Sarah.
Yeah, actually, I will. I know exactly what you're talking about because we were just talking about it during the break, where we had a bride that booked our 1 shooter package. So Dan was going out for it, and I was timelining her day. One of the things that we do for you guys is we will timeline your entire day. That's the benefit of going with us, is that I really help you go through the entire day, and most weddings need 8 hours. That's most. But there's always weddings that need less, and there's always weddings that need more. But a rule of thumb, when you're looking for a wedding photographer, 8 hours is the average. So there's reasons when you need more, and there's reasons when you need less, and we'll get into that a little bit. But so Dan and I were just talking about over our break, this one particular client that we had, she got the 1 shooter package. We were timelining her day, which was maybe about a couple months before her wedding, because usually you timeline, we do a rough timeline in the beginning, and we're with you throughout the entire planning process, but we really do the final timeline about 6 weeks to 4 weeks out, because then all your details are done, your guest list is done, we can really hone in the timeline. So we started realizing quickly when I was timelining her day that 1 shooter was not going to work. She wanted multiple locations for her pictures. She wanted to do it all during cocktail hour, and that was just too much for 1 shooter. So we had to bring on a 2nd shooter.
Yep. And I mean, thank God we did, because not that it's, I guess, something you can plan on beforehand, but once we got there, and I was thinking, I think you were thinking the same thing, that, oh, I'm so glad we had 2 shooters, was rowdy bridal party.
Right.
And being able to wrangle with 2 people is a lot easier. And again, it's not something you can probably. I mean, I guess maybe you can know your friends and know they're partying. Some people let loose and then they run away, go to the bar or whatever. And if you have 2 people, you can have one send, oh, go get dad.
Right.
And obviously that's a lot harder. And that was something that came into play definitely on
that
year.
one.
Yeah.
And you know what, though, Dan? You brought up a good point is that when we timeline your day, guys, we always leave room for quote-unquote error. What I mean by error is traffic. Person went to the bathroom, rowdy wedding party, or, just ceremony ran late. So, I mean, don't worry about it as far as if you did get one shooter and like something derailed or went wrong. It's in the timeline. Things are built in. But there are some key areas where I start to see where we have to do 2 shooters. And this was a particular example that late in the process we knew that we needed 2 shooters. Normally we know early in the process. Yeah. So timelines. Let's talk a little bit about timelines.
Wait, can I
yes.
I want to try to make a running gag of the podcast. Sarah, how long is that 15-minute ride down the road? How long is that going to take? That's going to take. It's only 15 minutes down the road, right?
It's only 15.
It's only 15 minutes.
No, Dan. 15 minutes down the road, Dan, on an actual wedding day turns into like.
Hold on. Where's the cooler?
Yes, and I got to go to the bathroom.
Got to go to the bathroom. Hey, let's stop at the liquor store.
Ooh, and then while we're at it, let's just.
Oh, I ripped my pants. Hey, I only have one shoe. We got to stop somewhere else.
One shoe.
Lost her shoe. Yeah. I think we've lost pants before. I don't know if they've lost a shoe. We've definitely done one where, no pants.
Yeah, someone lost their pants. Socks.
Socks.
I had one time in a room, which now it's in style to not have socks.
I know. I don't dig that. Sarah digs that.
I do. You said that. I like it. You don't like it.
I don't know.
Hey, well, there you go. Dan's pet peeve: no socks.
I'm sure it looks good on other people. I don't dig the no socks, but sorry, I totally derailed.
No, but you know what though? Let's going off of your little joke. Actually, guys, timelines. So I'm going to turn this into a serious moment. Wah, wah. But Dan's right. 15 minutes up the road, guys, turns into like 40 minutes. I'll tell you why. It's 15 minutes there, 15 minutes back. That's a half an hour, and then like 5 minutes loading in and 5 minutes loading out. That's like 40 minutes at least, a minimum. So just remember when you're doing your timelines. A lot of times people say to me, "But it's only 15 minutes up the road," and they don't understand why I'm building in 40 minutes. And when I say that, meaning, okay, they're going to want to go somewhere to take pictures, but it's only 15 minutes up the road. Well, I just put in 40 minutes because it's 50 minutes to drive there, 50 minutes to drive back, 5 minutes to load in the car, and 5 minutes to load out. So anyway, kind of going back to what Dan was saying, wants to get the cooler, wants to stop at the liquor store. Somebody's MIA. Ladies, if you had people in your wedding party that just had babies, someone's, pumping or.
Oh, recently we had somebody they wanted to stop off at their work.
Yes.
Remember?
Okay, so let's back up for a second.
That was pretty funny.
That we didn't even know about.
Yeah, we didn't know.
We timeline your days, but it still happens. People do things that we didn't even know. Mm-hmm. So we were literally at the location that we were. So they got married. And then we were driving to where we were going to do the pictures. And Dan and I are sitting there, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. And then the videographer shows up, and they say, oh, yeah, they stopped at the work to take some, their own selfies of where they worked, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But it was, thank God we built in the timeline, extra time, because literally we were there for like a good 15, 20 minutes waiting for them.
Maybe another takeaway. I know that they said they just wanted to go take selfies, so, I mean, they didn't show up and say, where are you? But if you do want make your weird stop or anywhere you want to go, give a heads up to photographer if you want to.
Yeah, so we can go with you.
Absolutely. Don't take any secret trips.
Right. I mean, they didn't want us. I mean, not that they didn't want us there, but it was literally, I think she was just stopping to say hello to her coworkers. Right. So it wasn't like something they wanted to get captured. But you're right. Let us know. So we'll just go with you anyway.
Yeah, right.
I think actually though, I found out afterwards that was like an improv stop. Like somebody said it to them, like, let's go there. But again, that 15 minutes, let's go there, because I think what happens is that the road that they were taking passes their work. They're not realizing that takes up that 5-minute stop is actually, I told you, 5 minutes turns into 20 minutes. 5 minutes in, 5 minutes out, loading in.
Yep.
Then then it doesn't matter. We already covered that. But timelines, usually it's an 8-hour day, and it's broken up a couple of hours of bridal prep. We save a half an hour for first look, which you don't need a half an hour. But again, it's, that 10 minutes of first looks, but then you have to, walk there, walk back. It also saves room for error.
There's a lot of setup that goes into a first look as well. It's, having people not see each other. Okay, you go here. Whoop, don't walk around. You stand here, look that way. Don't turn around. Running back to this person to say, okay, you're going to turn, you're going to do this. Kind of, not telling them what to do, but setting things up. It takes a little time.
Yeah, we never want to tell you guys what to do, and we don't stop it from happening, but we do have to set it up to make sure that it happens correctly.
Obviously, we don't want somebody, just like coming into the bathroom. Oh, there you are,
Right.
You say, oh, you got to go to the bathroom. Let's do that. You stay hidden. Come over here. Do that.
Right.
There's a little maneuvering required.
So if you're having a timeline where you are getting ready and getting married and having your cocktail hour and your reception all in one spot, again, that's lending itself to be okay with one shooter. Mm-hmm. If you have multiple locations, it's lending itself to need 2 shooters. However, if your multiple location is just that you're getting ready somewhere else and you're okay with the shooter just going with one person, you're okay. You can do one shooter. Mm-hmm. Like, just build it in the timeline that the photographer starts with you and then travels with you to the venue. But if you're getting married and getting ready and everything's happening on one site, again, it's you lend yourself to one shooter. It's okay. When you're off site, usually 2 shooters are sometimes a little bit better anyway, for obvious reasons that we talked about before. Mm-hmm. If you're doing a first look, again, you're starting to enter into the category of having one shooter is fine. Mm-hmm. If you're not doing a first look, does not mean that you need one shooter. It's 2 shooters, but it's all about the timeline. If you're only saving 1 hour for photos, it's really tight, guys. Yep. Because the breakdown formula for timelines for photography is it's 20 minutes with a family. So it's 20 minutes. It's 10 minutes on one side, 10 minutes on the other side of the families. So that's 20 minutes. Then it's 20 minutes with a bridal party. Even if you're only having just a maid of honor and a best man, it's still 20 minutes of photography with that group. Mm-hmm. And then it's 20 minutes with a couple. That's how you get the 1 hour. So where are you sticking time for the details? Something has to be cut short with one shooter. Yep. With 2 shooters, the person can kind of escape and go get the detail shots or cocktail hour shots.
And some things that are the, like you were saying before, like the, you have to kind of on the fly when, the timeline's tight, you have to make decisions about certain things. I would say usually the thing that slows people down is if we're doing like formals and like maybe an uncle is supposed to be in one of those formals and they're somewhere else. They didn't realize they were supposed to be in them. Now, do we take the time to go get them, bring them back? Sometimes you don't have time for that. We run a pretty tight ship. We have our list and everything. I circle that and I say, I communicate that, say, hey, he's not here. We could go get him. It would be this amount of time and it's going to cut into other things. Or we can get a nice picture at the reception,
That's a great point.
When things lighten up a little bit, we can definitely still get that. It's on my list. It's circled,
Yeah, and by circling it, we still have to get it. And it's just about communication and asking the couple what's important to them. So, again, it's all about timelines. So let me give you a quick timeline for the listeners of an average day. Now, keep in mind, this is an average day. There's reasons to have more or less hours. I'm going to give you an average day at the venue and then an average day with a off-site location, aka a church or a temple. Average day at the venue. You usually start bridal prep a couple of hours early and then groom prep about an hour. Then if you're having a first look, you go right into the first look and you save 1.5 hours for a first look and photos from your ceremony time. because it first looks about a half an hour, and then we just talked about the 1 hour that you need for photos. And then if your ceremony is at 5 o'clock, you're ending photos at 4:30. You always end photos a half an hour prior to your ceremony because you got to go freshen up and your guests are arriving. So if you're getting married at 5 o'clock, photos are from 3:30 to 4:30, and first look is at 3. So that's that hour and a half. So 3 to 3:30 is first look. 3:30 to 4:30 is photos, and then 4:30 is a hard stop with photos to get ready for the ceremony. And then your ceremony is at 5 o'clock. Ceremony is usually about a half an hour if it's on site. And then you get into your cocktail hour, which is 1 hour, and then the rest of the night is history. We get all that. That's how you get the 8 hours of coverage. With 8 hours of coverage on site, first look, you usually are not staying to the very end of the night, but that's okay. Rule of thumb is at least 1 hour until your dance floor is officially open is enough. Now, if you have a package that has more coverage in it, sure, have your photographer till the end if it's there, but you don't need it. The necessity is 1 hour to capture the dance floor. Off-site weddings, where you're getting married off-site, lends itself to obviously more time. That's where you start getting into you might need more than 8 hours. So because everything I just talked about is happening, but you have to add in travel time now. And remember what Dan just said, that 15 minutes really turns into 40 minutes because it's 15 minutes there, then it's 15 minutes traveling back. Meaning like, so you're getting ready at your house, then you're driving 15 minutes to the church, and then you're driving the 15 minutes back to like, I don't know, I'm just saying basically whatever it is to travel in your car, add double that on your wedding day because there's traffic. And also, too, some of these transportations, they can't go down certain streets. They ride slower.
Yep. And I was going to say, even if everybody's getting their own car, that's a lot of parking and losing people along the way. People in their own cars are going to go this way, that way. Oh, I got lost. Oh, I had to stop for something. You know what I mean?
And you know what, Dan? I'm so happy you brought up your own cars. We just recently had a wedding that they were going to take Ubers. It was a disaster. So Ubers do not come in certain parts of Newport, guys. And just in general, even if it wasn't in Newport, Ubers are not always available at your beck and call. So I would not, if you don't want to do transportation, I would line up a designated driver before you do an Uber. Just throwing that out there. I don't want to. I mean, but again, it was okay because at least if you're working with Dan and I, we build in that room for error, I guess is the point of what we're saying.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I hope that this helped think about one shooter versus two shooter and timelines. Obviously, when you're working with us, we will let you know when you need to have two shooters. But it's so doable with one shooter. It's just a matter of building in the timeline and the time. And just know that one shooter tends to have sometimes more than the 8 hours that's in a typical wedding. But that's okay because you're actually saving a lot more money with the one shooter than you would anyway by adding the hours in. Just kind of throwing that out there.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. This was supposed to be a small episode.
Was it? How long did we talk for?
I don't know. I whatever.
But you know what's funny?
I just wanted to bust you.
You know what's funny, Dan? I could sit there. Obviously, I could sit there and talk forever. This was supposed to be a mini series.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
I thought it was mini. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, guys. I could talk forever, as you all know. Well, with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick mini series with Dan and I. And we'll be back on in a couple weeks, maybe about another month from now. We'll have another mini series coming at you guys. So with that said, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Wedding Secrets Unveiled.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarazarrella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening.